Welcome, everyone, back to the Simply Trade podcast. We are collaborating with the NCBFAA, where we're highlighting the different committees and the different efforts and outreach that the NCBFAA does for the brokerage, freight forwarder, logistics community. So in today's episode, we're going to cover another committee called the RAC. So that's a Regulatory Agencies Committee, also known as RAC. And again, I joke around about this before is as if customs or CBP or the community didn't need another acronym. We have another one here. So RAC, we have several folks representing that committee, beginning with Mr. Michael Lahar, otherwise known as Mike Lahar. He's the committee chair. And then we have Adam Lees, and forgive me, Adam, I didn't catch your title, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit. And then for sure, Cindy Thomas. Cindy Thomas is a counsel who sits with the committee. So anyway, so with that said, welcome everyone. Mike, let's just start with you here real quick. Can you just give us a brief, 10,000 foot overview of the RAC committee?
Sure, Lalo. Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity for the RAC to talk to everybody. So we're going to put everybody on the RAC today and talk about participating government agencies. So the RAC is the committee within the NCBFAA that deals with all of the other agencies outside of CBP. And we have relationships with most of the major agencies. I was looking just before we started here, and we actually have 15 subcommittees that deal with different agencies, whether that's USDA, CPSC, EPA, or our good friends over at the Food and Drug Administration.
Awesome. And Adam, and again, I apologize, I didn't catch your title. So I'm assuming you're probably heading up one of those subcommittees that Mike just talked about.
That's correct. Thank you, Lalo, for having us today. I am the vice chair for the Regulatory Agencies Committee, and yes, we do have, as Mike mentioned, multiple subcommittees. I happen to chair the Cosmetic Subcommittee, which is a subcommittee of the FDA subcommittee. And yes, we've spent a lot of time working with all of the agencies this year, really to reestablish some relationships and move forward as the policies have changed under the new administration.
Awesome. And Cindy, I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to have to introduce you because I know you're very well known in the industry, and I did talk about that earlier and some other episodes of legends in the industry, and I definitely know that you are one. And it's great to have you here. Anything you might want to do to say to kick this off?
Yeah, it's great to be here, Lalo. And I have been working with Mike and the RAC committee and Adam, who's vice chair of the RAC committee, for 5 years now. And prior to that, I was working along through Kent O'Connor with the NCBFAA. So I go really far back. And we have had this has been an unusual year for the RAC, and we can talk more about that. But fortunately, we did not have any major implementations occurring, but it was a year of just adapting and thinking creatively and being very flexible and working with each agency as they each had sort of a unique story. So I think we are, nearing the end of 2025, but can be really proud of a lot of the things we have accomplished in unusual times.
Right. So I'm going to address the elephant in the room only because today is November 7. We are still in a government shutdown. So let's start there right now, but we'll go into other wins or challenges or items that you might have tackled during 2025. But I'm assuming because of the shutdown, although CBP wasn't technically affected, I've been hearing lots of good news in the fact that cargo is still moving and things are still clearing. So that is good throughout the shutdown. But what about the PGAs? I mean, what about like all the other government agencies? I know during previous shutdowns, we've had like where the EPA was no longer able to interject when there was a need to have them, or the FDA, et cetera, just because they were either short-staffed or just literally shut down. So shipments got held up, and that just was not a good thing when it was, especially you all dealing with other agencies because like food needs to get in. If it's sitting at the border, imagine something sitting at the border for 40 whatever days it's been since the shutdown. it's going to spoil, right? And some farmers may also need pesticides or something for their growing season. The list goes on and on and on. But anyway, um, what and I'm very naive on this. I'm sorry to say, but what have you all done as far as a committee or have seen that may have either affected because of the shutdown and may have helped the members maybe deal with it or get through it?
I think it goes back even farther than that, Lalo. I think it goes back to earlier this year when Doge came in and they
Yes.
started doing some of the staffing reductions at the various agencies. So Customs came out of that fairly well, but every agency that we deal with, some got hit worse than others. Some of the agencies were really decimated by the layoffs and the staffing reductions. So here you are. We're already dealing with that, and you fast forward to October, and now we have a government shutdown. So now the agencies are having to make a decision of who works, who doesn't. They're already short staffed. Some of the agencies completely and totally shut down. They went home and there's nobody there. The lights are off, the doors are shut. They're not answering emails and phone calls. There are some other agencies that have restrictions, but they're still functioning. For example, the Food and Drug Administration with some limitations. So it runs a full gamut between a complete stop to we're making do. But I will share with you that we've had members that have been receiving notifications from some of these agencies getting an email back saying, hey, we're not open right now, or at least this individual wasn't there, and that they will answer our emails or inquiries once the government reopens. So in some cases, you have to kind of work around that if you have something that's being held up.
And I would add, you look at some of the government agencies, some of the processes that they undergo for an importer have also been delayed as a result. You look at Fish and Wildlife, you apply for a permit, an import or an export permit, and it normally can take up to 60 days. What we've seen some of our members reporting to us that it's taking closer to 60 days rather than shorter, which it normally does. And some of that, as Mike mentioned, because of GOGE, there have been a number of specialists and fish and wildlife personnel that have that have left the organization, and the ones that have replaced them have, they're not as experienced in the process, and so they're taking a little bit longer than you would expect.
And this shutdown has, as far as import processing goes, it's been fairly smooth as far as the PGA goes compared to prior shutdowns. But I think what worries the RAC and is of concern is um, there are a lot of pieces that we're going to have to pick up when this is over. You have, FDA is functioning at the ports, but we have food facility registration renewals due by December 31st. Medical device facility. We don't know when the government's going to open, and that gives very little time to do those renewals. And so we're going to have to pick up the pieces with FDA and see, can you extend this? Can you give us a grace period into January when those renewals are due? That's a big concern.
But that everything y'all are saying, I guess it falls into place as to how you all as the RAC and within the NCBFAA help facilitate that information out to the membership so they're not like just wandering around like blindly, I guess, and trying to figure out, and that way they can provide better answers for their clients. In other words, the brokers can anyway. So I mean that totally falls into that, which makes sense. I guess in that theme, what major accomplishments or wins have you all had in 2025, or what have you been working on? I do want to say this. I do really love and appreciate the fact that um, uh, um, you NCBFA as an organization, it's not just the membership organization where I'm sending out information to my membership. It's also proactive. It advocates. You all are on Capitol Hill. Look at Mike. I mean, he's there waiting for the shutdown to end. So y'all need to see the video version of this, by the way. So anyway, and all joking aside, you all are there. You're like a lobbying group. You're in the not in the faces of, but sitting there next to Congress representatives, their staff. So I see the pictures, I see the activities. What can you say about that? And as far as 2025, you can say, okay, that let's chalk that up to a win. Something anything that you all may have been working on.
Well, I think despite the fact that everybody's eyes have been on customs this year, with everything going on, that's in the forefront of everybody's mind. There has been a lot of stuff that has been bubbling up and that we've been working on throughout 2025. I think the one thing that kind of snuck up on us in July and surprised us, and if I was going to pick one thing for the year, it would be the fact that FDA surprised us with the announcement of their NER, or National Entry Review Program. So we only had a 30-day notice that this was going into effect in August. And essentially what was happening is FDA was shifting their staff from a port model where when your goods come in, they're reviewed by the FDA staff at the port, to a centralized national program where all of this information goes into this program that's spread out virtually throughout the country. And it's kind of along the lines of the Cs, the customs Cs. So if you have a particular type of product, you're going to go to a particular group of people who are familiar with that product. Sounded great coming out of the gate. We thought, oh, wow, we might really gain some efficiencies here. And I think we'll get there eventually. But when August rolled around, there were definitely some growing pains. So before we even talked about government shutdown, we were already seeing delays in shipments. We were seeing unusual requests that a lot of people had never seen before. One of the things that the RAC really specializes in is developing relationships with all of these agencies. So we've been trying to leverage the relationship that we've developed over the years with FDA. And when they came to us about the NER, we know who was in charge of that program. So we have been feeding information back to them. We've had a meeting with them, and we're trying to make it better. And the idea behind the NER, it's an increased efficiency through consistent enforcement. But anytime you make a shift like that, there are going to be, like I said earlier, growing pains. So FDA has told us some of the things that we're seeing. It's because maybe at the port level, they weren't properly enforcing rules and regulations. Now they are. We're working through that. People are getting used to the new way that FDA is enforcing things. They're getting the documentation and the information that FDA wants up front so that when they get the release information, they can go ahead and they can expedite these releases. And with anything, of course, we have a few officers here and there that seem to have their own agenda. But we're working through that too. And we've seen improvement. That's the encouraging thing. So right out of the gate, we were pulling our hair out because we didn't know which way to turn. But depending upon your type of commodity, we've definitely seen improvements. So all we can do is keep working with the Food and Drug Administration and try to make things better. And we keep engaging with our membership and ask them, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? Are you having delays? What are your delays? How can we help you with those delays? So, I think a year from now, we're probably going to look back at the NER and say, did we struggle with it? Sure, we did. Anytime you make a big change like that, there's always struggle. But I think a year from now, things are going to be running smoothly. We may even see efficiencies. That's what FDA is hoping for. They're hoping to see efficiencies because they're having the same people working on a particular vertical that otherwise would just be dependent upon what port you would cross at.
And, just in addition to the FDA's NER, Mike touched on a really good point that it's all about. We leverage our relationships with these government agencies. As I mentioned earlier, we've established some new relationships with some of the government agencies. As the current administration came in, there were some changes to some of the agencies and the contacts that we had within those organizations. And, as an example, I look at the Agricultural Marketing Service, a long-time contact that we've been working with left. And the new person that replaced him had no experience with us or in our area. When we set up that initial call with them, which they approached us rather than us approaching them, which was a very refreshing take on the matter. They reached out to us, and during that conversation, he wanted to learn more about us. And I thought that was very impressive. We ended up having significant follow-up calls with them on some issues that were resolved fairly quick because they were willing to learn about, not only what we do as the RAC, but also our business, because they weren't familiar with our side of the business in their agency. Go ahead, Cindy. I know you were about to jump in.
Yeah, no, you caused me to have a thought. I think one of the surprising things that happened this year, and this goes along with what Adam is saying, is the degree to which these agencies, all of whom are going through their own changes, have new people, and they are very short-staffed. They seem to recognize that custom brokers can be force multipliers to the entire importing community. And that's something the association has said for years, but these PGAs seem to be getting that. And they're realizing that they can get their jobs done more effectively with our help, and they want compliance, and they really don't want to hold up trade. So I think that's really been at the heart of some of the bonds that we have been able to forge this year. And I think a lot of that is going to bear fruit in some of the things that are ahead.
And one more thing, go ahead, Mike.
I think some of what we're experiencing is there is somewhat of a new generation of people coming into some of these agencies. And I'll just throw APHIS out there, for example. They came to the GAC, Government Affairs Conference in Washington back in September, and they were great. They gave a presentation, but they stayed until Wednesday once the conference was over, and they were able to sit down at the table and talk to us. They wanted to know, what is it that we wanted for the agency? What kind of information? What kind of help can they provide? But the great thing is we also had Fish and Wildlife sitting at the table with us. And Fish and Wildlife looked at me and they said, well, how can we help you? And I just pointed down the table at the guys from APHIS. And next thing you know, we had this conversation going between these two agencies, and we kind of helped to broker the deal. So no pun intended, but it was exciting to see, because now I think we're going to see some stuff coming out of the Fish and Wildlife Service that APHIS is helping them.
You caught exactly what I was just going to say, that interagency cooperation that we've helped facilitate, I think, has been a very big win for us as the RAC, but also as a benefit to our community.
And I know y'all are gonna, if I can turn around my computer and show you, I had that question. I was gonna ask, what PGA interactions do you believe need more proactive engagement?
I'll actually touch on that. So Mike mentioned GOGE again earlier, and we lost a long time contact that we've worked with for many, many years at the Food Safety Inspection Service. And he was replaced with 3 websites and an email address. That's a hard thing to wrap your head around. And so we've had to work around that and find new ways to interact with the Food Safety Inspection Service. But that being said, we've been able to get by that and still have success with the agency.
Great, great. And so let me ask you also. I think I heard in one of my morning podcasts that I listen to normally when I'm out walking or exercising. I think I heard that one of these big groups that they have the word of the year, right? One of them, I think one of them was something related to AI. God, I wish vibe coding. That's what a close second, third, or fourth were all AI related, like slop and all these other AI stuff. So that's obviously that's in our world now, and in trade I see that a lot as well, only because like when we go to conferences, this last time we were at the NCBFAA conference in April back in Phoenix, there was a lot of AI vendors there. There was a lot of AI software. What, if anything, are you all doing or helping or working with, facilitating, etc.? You fill in the blanks with that, because I understand, I guess ACE is already fully ported over with all the PGAs, if I'm not mistaken. So we're past that, but now we're not, maybe the next stage of like automation. Like, what tools are they using that might identify things in the trade community that maybe the trade should be also be aware of? I mean, I can go into a whole different thing that I heard another conversation very similar, that CBP is using AI to identify things for the importing community. So you should be using AI to not combat it, but be prepared for it. But anyway, any of that resonate with you all, or that you might have been working on in 2025, or maybe looking forward to 2026?
Well, I think all of the PGAs are utilizing some form of AI on their import programs, and they're not terribly transparent about it all. But, FDA in particular is one of the leading ones, but I think they all are, and they're all looking at how they can enhance their targeting and their risk analysis. And so I think what we're trying to do is stay ahead of that. And I think some of the odd enforcement things we see, like squid from Argentina and the Fish and Wildlife Service suddenly asking for things they've never asked for before
Right.
on that product. Some of that may be generated by AI. So we're trying to stay on top of it. Mike may want to.
Yeah, well, and just we're always going to get to this in a minute. So I guess this is as good a time as any, not even going as far as AI. We're not quite there yet, actually, with the agencies and filing through ACE. So ITDS started, well, actually, ITDS started 20 years ago, but it was a mandate of President Obama as he left the administration. And we were left with this in 2016. And here we are going into 2026. And we still have two major agencies that are just now crossing the finish line. So in July of 2026, we will have CPSC that will mandate electronic filing through CBP. You can do it right now. And what we're seeing is importers aren't currently taking advantage of the time that they have. It's not just like flipping a switch. So when you're working with CPSC, there's testing that has to be done, reporting that has to be done. And come July, if you're not ready for that, you're going to be stuck with your customs broker doing it the old fashioned way. It's going to slow down the release of your goods. So if I could get one point across in this entire presentation, is if you're doing anything to do with CPSC, make sure that you're working on it right now, because you're going to be glad you did come July. And the other one is the Fish and Wildlife Service. So Fish and Wildlife has, for the last 3 or 4 years, at the beginning of the year, they tell us we're going to have our final rule out. And then for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to happen. We've been promised that 2026 is the year.
But I'll believe it when I see it.
I think we all will believe it when we see it.
We're waiting for a final rule to come out mid 2026 from the Fish and Wildlife Service. And then once that's published, we're going to have a 20-day period within which to start filing electronically. And again, they currently are open for people to file. It's not mandatory. So I would highly recommend that people that have goods that are subject to regulation by Fish and Wildlife start filing now, so they can work the bugs out.
And I think, the part of the issue with Fish and Wildlife, and in some ways FDA is very similar. They have that hybrid option, right? Fish and Wildlife is not going to get rid of their EDEX software. FDA is not going to get rid of ITAC. So, you know, the options will still be there, but the mandatory filing in ACE, to your point, Mike, will come. I mean, we've seen the start and stops with CPSC over the last 10 years, and they're finally making that progress.
Great. Awesome. So, I mean, I guess moving into 2026 and with the lessons learned of 2025, and again, I I'm going back and I'm thinking a lot about 2025 as to, we had the shutdown, and then of course before that we had leading up to it, and even now still dealing with it is all the different tariffs and all the different mayhem that the policies may have created, but at the same time, um, I didn't really see too much disruption as far as like trade, I guess. I mean, don't take me wrong. Brokers are running around like crazy trying to figure out how they're going to file, how they're going to, code it in their entries and all that. Kudos to you guys, because I mean that is a nightmare. But what I'm saying more is like, what maybe do you think? And you all as in RAC, because I asked almost a similar question to the Customs Committee, but for any PGAs and dealing with PGAs, what do you feel like you might have the you as a RAC and the brokers themselves, the practitioners, what do you feel like may have learned in 2025 that they can carry on to 2026 and say, what's that saying? Once full, twice. I can't remember, but like
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me
yeah,
twice, shame on me.
yeah, something like that. Y'all know what we're talking about.
Yes.
But anyway, so going into 2026, theme that we can take away from that.
I actually feel what I take away from 2025, I'm really in awe of the commitment and the resilience of the government people that we work with at the operational level in these PGAs. Brokers have been under a lot of stress and strain, but so have these people. They have just done a remarkable job, and they continue to reach out to us, and we reach out to them, and we're all making progress and laying the groundwork for more in the year ahead. But that to me stands out as what we've learned.
And I would say also, change is inevitable, right? And we're seeing significant change this year. And to Cindy's point, the resiliency of not only the government and the government agencies, but also the brokerage community. We've adapted on the fly with a lot of changes this year, both on the customs side as well as the government agency side, as enforcement has increased. As we've seen, as we mentioned, personnel changes and all the other events that have come about. When you look at some of the events that we have no control over around the globe that somehow influence our industry, there's been that ability to adapt as quickly as possible. And I think we've all done a really good job with that, as well as our counterparts in the government.
I think there's a hunger at the agencies to engage with people, to engage with associations like the NCBFAA. And we're seeing that. Just recently, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, reached out to us out of the blue, and they want to engage with the NCBFAA. So we'll be having a meeting with them, I think it's next week, if I remember correctly, to talk about what they can do for us, what we can do for them, how we can help get information out for them, or as Cindy mentioned earlier, we can be a force multiplier for them. So if they have information that they want our customers to know, they're able to give us to that. Instead of dealing with thousands and thousands of importers, they can deal with a couple hundred brokers, and we can get it out to our customers, and everybody benefits. The broker benefits, the agency benefits, and certainly our customers benefit because they have the information that they need to be able to effectively file a an entry and get it released as soon as possible.
Awesome. So, in the interest of time, I'm not going to try to keep you here all too much longer. I kind of want to touch on a few other things. In closing, I guess I'm just trying to get everything in before we close down. I mean, I know in April, and I was just looking at that right now, April, bear with me, folks, and you all probably know this better than I do. April 12th through the 15th is the annual conference for NCBFAA. Member or not, you can attend. It'll probably cost you a little more if you're not a member, but which you might want to look into becoming a member to cut down on that cost. But it will be in San Antonio. It's in the beautiful JW Marriott out there. I've stayed there before. It's amazing. Believe me, you'll be in awe how great that hotel is. But other than that, anything that you all may talk about that we might be looking forward to in 2026 with regards to maybe events or actions or activities that you all feel we should be looking forward to, that at the very least you all as a rec committee are going to be on top of?
Just to piggyback on what you said, Lalo, shameless promotion for the NCBFAA's annual conference. We're looking to do something a little bit different this year. And we're hoping to have some agencies there that will actually do some training aside from the regular sessions. So kind of like what we've done in the past, PVP and the ACE training. So we're really excited about.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah, because I know that ACE session that you always have is like standing room almost, like it's always full and people are always asking Carlos, I think is his name, all the questions in the world. So anyway, anything else?
I think next year we're looking at a big lift with the National Marine Fisheries implementation, court-ordered implementation of the Marine Mammal Protection Act requirements. It's a big concern to us. It came out in the end of August, and we immediately started reaching out to National Marine Fisheries to meet with them, because the requirements that they have spelled out really assume a level of traceability and government interoperability of foreign countries that just does not exist, and it's unrealistic. So there are many questions about how they planned it. It requires certificate of authorizations for seafood from a number of countries, and it could be a nightmare. And we're hoping that through conversations with the National Marine Fisheries, we can find a sensible way to implement this. It's some scary requirements, and we're hoping that they've completely shut down during the government shutdown, and we have not been able to get any answers as of early November here. So that's going to be a challenge.
Great. Well, thank you, Cindy. Thanks for that update. And if there's nothing else, thank you all. And that actually helps my segue into my closing. I was going to say that when it comes to trade, and especially for the brokers, freight forwarders, logistics folks that benefit the most out of the NCBFAA, although truthfully anybody really can benefit, whether you're just a practitioner that employs a broker or a freight forwarder. There's a lot of benefits there as well, that you'll actually learn a lot or hear firsthand some information. But what my closing was going to be more like from my favorite, one of my favorite, not my favorite, but one of my favorite artists, George Strait. He says, you always have to have that ace in the hole. And that's what I feel is NCBFAA. You've got that ace in the hole. You have to have that competitive advantage somehow. And this is it. I mean, really, you'll have that with this bunch of great folks here in the group. But thank you all. Thank you so much for your patience in dealing with me and having to navigate through this as best as I could, and I really appreciate that. And I hope you all have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Pleasure
you all.
to be.